All right. I think we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the 10x Go to Market podcast. We are so excited to have Andy here. Andy, I think I met him in the earliest days of building Pocus. And so he has all the takes on ops and tooling and founder life. So, very excited to dive in. Before we do that, for those of you that this is the first live podcast that you've been to, this is the chance for you to ask all of your questions and learn from experts like Andy for building out a 10x go to market team. And so, if you want, you can add your name and your company and where you are in the world into the chat so Andy knows who he's talking to. You can also ask questions and we will get to them as we start the conversation. But before we get started, I'm just going to give a quick intro to Andy. He is the VP of Go to Market Ops at Carta, a product that we're big users of here at Pocus. Prior to Carta, Andy ran operations at lots of different companies like Box and Upwork, and he was the co-founder and CEO of Gated, which is where we first met, sharing the founder journey and lots of experience at different unicorns, all focusing on driving efficiency, accelerating growth, using data to power go-to-market. So I know this is going to be a very good conversation. So Andy, thank you so much for being here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what I might have missed?
Oh, you nailed it, Alexa. It's great to be here. I was happy to dive right in. I guess maybe I just say yes. I've run it kind of 4 unicorns. I also periodically do the founder journey as well too. So I appreciate both sides. I think there's the way we're looking at an enterprise, and I often just love talking to great tech founders as well and learning what they're building. So take a lot of those calls on my commutes, and so I try to stay current on all the coolest tools, even if from like a data security perspective, we can't use every single one all the time immediately on day one. The classic of, hey, cool, we'll just plug it in your environment. And just, it's easy to do a beta and a test. That doesn't fly at enterprise. But I really love all the innovative stuff as well.
That's makes a ton of sense for what I know about them. So let's start from the beginning-ish of your career. You have worked at multiple unicorns. You even founded your own company, Gated. You found yourself now back into the ops world. Tell us about this journey and how you got to where you landed today.
Oh God, that's probably longer. That's the whole podcast if we want. But at a fundamental level, like I was banking and finance early. Then I, you know, worked for a wealthy family, and at some point I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek book. Got really inspired, and so cold called Fabio, the CEO of Upwork, and ended up
Wow.
working for him, managing a sales team, building out the initial CRM and marketing automation, and just kind of like growing from there. And so I learned what I was really good at and had a lot of fun with it. And I follow my journey along and always find great companies. And so I've had some fun. I'd say one of my favorite runs, in addition to kind of where I'm always at, is Culture Amp. I joined at like 10 million and we took it to 140. Just a great team. And so a lot of my team's still there. So a lot of fun.
That- That's awesome. I didn't know the cold call story. So you have a little bit of sales in you too.
I will cold email, but yes. Yeah. I'm more the relationship sales. I think he's like 8 people told me I need to meet you. I'm like, yep, I'll just keep going until you meet me. So I'm a big fan of that.
You are, and you're a very good connector. I feel like you've made a lot of good friends to me for me. So it's everyone. Okay, let's go back to go to market ops world. You've seen and evaluated a lot of different tools. You mentioned it yourself. You would try them all, but enterprises, it's hard to do that. So how do you approach building and maintaining a go to market tech stack?
I'd say first is just like good decision making across the board, right? Like the ability to have like a single unified team that's thinking that through. And we've been really empowered to do that at Carl. They've set us up in a really good way, right? Before I was there was like a MOPS team that was kind of over here and a SOPS team, and there was enablement, and they were all working for different people. And I think you can do it a little bit when they're separate, but at a fundamental level, like I've always been a fan of like a single ability to enforce those decisions. And so we've been incredibly empowered and we've cleaned up a lot of junk that was here, right? Like systems that were literally like bought 9 months ago, but never implemented or foisted on business systems at the last minute of like, hey, you've got to like plug this thing in with no context or anything like that. So that was kind of like the first 3 or 4 months I partnered with the MOPS team, the CMO, the CRO, the head of business systems, and we kind of really just got that decision making right. Like, how do you buy a tool? How do you think through it? And then you kind of step back and you think through like stop reacting to vendors and really start to understand like what are the priorities you have and gear your whole roadmap off of that. And so then we have to go back and train all of our leaders of like, great, like bring us the problem you're trying to solve because there may be lots of different ways to solve that problem versus bring us the shiny object and tool. That being said, like I hopped on a demo with our CRO today on something. Like we still look at those things, but we're very disciplined now of like where we do it. So there's a lot of like the decision making that while we're 400 plus million in revenue, there are plenty of smaller companies where you still need that decision making. And the earlier you put that discipline into place, like the better your tech stack will be. It won't be a total mess. So a lot of that stuff was early on at Carta to put that in place.
So tell me, I want to poke a little into what do you mean by good decision making? You have all these different tools, you'll take some demos, but most of them you don't buy. What does that mean to you to do good decision making very tactically?
I think it goes back to what I said about like knowing what you're trying to solve and being really clear on that, right? Because it's like you're trying to solve forecasting. There's like 300 vendors that will tell you that they can solve forecasting. They'll all come at it with a different perspective. Depending upon what else you have in your stack, you may want to approach it in different ways. And so, like, having the discipline to be like, what's the problem we're solving? And then agree on the problem and the priority, and then just figure out what the right vendors are, right? It's like I got very early on, like, hey, we have a problem with X. And so then I won't say X because we try not to share the problems, only the good things externally. But I got everyone really aligned early on that. And then we empowered the team to go out and look at all the different tools. I don't have to be on those demos, but they're all bringing them back. And then we all know we're heading towards the right direction. Another one that we haven't attacked yet is like content, right? Like sales content. How do you share it? And that's, again, there's a great example where marketing often will buy a content tool and sales will often buy a content tool. And oftentimes they'll be dueling tools. And so at Box, I remember we literally had like a scoring model for marketing and we had a scoring model for sales, like both plugged into the CRM. Like that's kind of not coordinated and not good decisioning.
Hmm. That and something that I see happening at almost every org buying sales software is there could be misalignment between sales ops, marketing ops, the CRO, the sales leaders in terms of what the final decision should be. So how do you handle that when maybe your CRO or sales leader or counterparts to you are saying, we want to go a different direction?
I mean, first, I wouldn't take the ops role if marketing ops and SOPs and CS ops were separate. Like, I think that's cool. Plenty of people do it, but it's like then you're dealing with exactly those points that I dealt with. Like, if you've got you know the marketing saying this and here's that, so then first you have to do that. Then you have to have the respect and the partnership with the CMO and the CRO and the chief customer officer. And then you've got to make sure you're listening to them and addressing their needs, which is why like you listen and you make sure you get aligned on the priorities, and then they'll trust you, right? Like because they don't spend all the time in it all the time. And so like a good example is our new CMO like brought me like she's like here's our 3 to 4 top tech priorities, and we're like great. And then there were like lots of interesting ways we could solve on those things, and we ended up prioritizing across those and which ones we want to do, and then we could run on those things.
Yeah. All right. So the answer is it has nothing to do with the actual process. It's how you work together and make sure that everyone's aligned on the same mission, vision, journey, like problem that needs to be solved.
Bingo. Yeah.
Cool. Um, gotta learn more about this. This is not what I usually hear, Andy. Um, Switching gears a little, to the word intent. It has been a go-to-market buzzword for a long time now. And the word intent means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yep.
So I'd be curious for you, what does intent mean? What are best practices for capturing and using intent? And kind of what role should tools play in thinking about intent in the modern go-to-market?
Yeah, I just dropped my article on intent in there. So that's a classic one. Like everyone gets very excited of like, hey, you can buy who's searching for your product on Google. Like that. There are so many different flavors of intent. There's like first party intent data. There's second party. There's third party. Like defining them, understanding them, how to operationalize them. They're all like critical components. So we could go as deep or shallow as we want on this one. I think my view is it's like a lot of false promises on some of the third party intent data. Like it matters like what's your go to market model, and it's not like one size intent data doesn't fit for everywhere. And so I think a lot of the third party stuff is hard. But why would you start with third party when you haven't even operationalized first party intent, right? So I think that's where I try to focus on first and get those foundations in place, and then you can start to innovate on specific signals beyond that.
Yeah. Do you have a different definition for intent versus signals?
I mean, I use the term intent, but intent and signals are kind of just two different versions of the same thing. I think well, if you think about it, there are signals don't indicate intent, and I think people confuse the two of those, right? So if you had to think about it, signals is the superset and intent is the subset. And a lot of time, very rarely do you actually have intent from signals, but you have to infer what's the right play to run, and also ideally you're giving the reps are giving feedback, right? So if you, I saw this early at Box where we were running like 80,000 accounts on game site where we were using triggers and signals from the product to be able to do that stuff. And we would send those calls to action to the reps and they would just fill up. Right. And so what
Mm.
you really want to do is the rep to say, like, I don't find this one useful. And here's why. And so there is that additional learning curve. And there's not just pumping more intense signals in and sending more stuff like that. I think that's kind of been played out, but you really have to leverage the rep judgment as well too. So I think a lot, I mean, the fact that somebody moved companies is the classic one that everyone talks about, right? Like,
Mm.
that's cool,
Not so sure.
but
Yeah.
that doesn't indicate that they are interested. That's an opportunity. And so I'd say that is a signal, but like you only know intent when you actually talked to somebody. I guess in theory, if you're browsing around G2, that's subtly, it's more a signal than intent, right? Like I go to G2 sometimes, or I go to my network, or I go to social. Those aren't intent. I think people put, oftentimes people will put terms on something that the way they think about it, but the reality is that's not intent until, like, you confirm that it's intent.
Interesting. So to you, there's nothing online until you meet someone. There's no first or third party signal that can give you full picture of intent until you talk to someone and do the discovery.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is like this. It's funny, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it depends upon the business unit and how we're thinking about it, but it's like it's like getting the at bats is oftentimes the easy part. It's converting those at bats from, "Hey, I'd love to go to the Warrior game with you," to, "I wanna go down that road and that journey with you and explore." And so I think there's still an art to that side of things.
Hmm. So
S so I would say, like, every signal is overplayed, right? Like, that's the hard part, and it's like I always ask vendors, they're like, "Hey, signals." I'm like, "Cool. Give me your top 3." And they'll always like, it'll always be like movement, like web visitors, and like 2 or 3 others. I'm like, "Cool. Now give me your next 10." And like, they actually run out at like 5 or 6 or 7. I've seen some fun ones from like, Ben Salzman at ZimInfo, where he's got this whole sheet of all of them, which I've linked in my sheet. Um, but like, I guess the beauty, the way we think about outbounding is our job is to find the signal, attack the hell out of it, and then eventually that signal gets down to like not that effective, right? Like that's the fundamental job of sales and marketing, right? It's and so, you know, the whole idea of, cool, you comment on Alexa's social post, that worked for a week, right? And then you're like, okay, cool, I get this. Like this is kind of a bullshit outbound, and like you just shut those down as well too.
yeah. So I'd be curious then, there's companies like so it sounds going back to the point of intent isn't intent until, you get on a call and figure out, do they have buying intent? What about companies like Sixth Sense or Demand Base where their whole parts of their product is selling quote unquote intent?
I shouldn't poop on specific vendors, now, should I, Alexa? I think very few people. I mean, I this all started with a post we had in the GTM front, around like who has successfully used these third party signals, and out of 40 people, like one had, and so it may work. Um, but I would probably start with some basics, right? Like, do you know who, when people visit your website, if they don't fill out a form, do you know who they are? And are you chasing it? Like, that's an easy signal. You don't need to go buy Google search intent data. Bombora, everyone knows, is kind of like the tool that powers a lot of it. Obviously, demand based and Sixth Sense have built their own pieces of that as well too. But at a fundamental level, like Bombora kind of like innovated that, and everyone's been on marketing demos where it's really sexy, right? Like, oh, cool, and here you can see the people that are paying to search for your stuff. I mean, Google doesn't really share that out. There are ways to do it, but it's hard to operationalize that. And even then, like, what are you going to do? Email somebody? I mean, I see this all the time of like literally people will email our CEO and be CRO and be like, "Hey, I noticed you were on our website," and he's always like, "God, this is annoying." Like, I was checking out one thing that like had nothing to do with the buying stuff, right? So it's like I think there's a real art to capitalizing on signals and being innovative and doing messaging. And so for me, the signals are nice. But we were talking about like M&A the other day, like how do you operationalize that signal? And I spent a lot of time thinking like, how do I get earlier in a signal than anybody else? How do I get smarter and further down the funnel? And how do I like operationalize the signals we have better and better to help the teams capitalize on those things? Yes, you can add more signals, but I don't think I'm losing a lot of sleep over like, do we have more signals? It's more like, how can we do better with the signals we have?
And going back to and I
That being said, we are looking for new innovative signals all the time.
so you're looking for innovative signals, but you don't kinda trust the, website visitor or LinkedIn post as something that is consistently going to grow your business.
It's a great hack when nobody else is doing it. When everyone else is doing it, you don't win anymore on that one. So that's everything in sales and marketing, right? It's our job to compete it down to where the returns of zero.
Yeah, and, really what we've seen at Pocus is signals are cool, they could be interesting, they can work, but just having it a lone signal of, like, you commented on my LinkedIn or, website, it's not enough. You need the full picture and the full story and the strategy behind what's actually happening at this company to actually be able to land that meeting and do the deal. So going beyond that, it sounds like you're not a fan of signals unless it's a sig
No, no, no. You should have signals. You should operationalize them. You should have first party intent. I think you should be very wary about the third party intent.
interesting. Okay. So going beyond signals then, what skills are more important than them in order to book meetings and use data to actually drive the sales process?
Authenticity, curiosity, engagement. I mean, I'll give the classic one I give, which is I spent the last 2 years before Carta stopping cold outbound. When I gave up gated, I was like, oh, but everyone's like, you're gonna get blown up. I'm really simple right now. Like, if you do the research on me, I literally have put it on my LinkedIn profile. It says, like, if you want to reach me, here is how. And it says, I like Keanu, send me a Keanu meme. 99% of people just send me an email. I mark every single one of those as spam. But the ones that where people actually take the time, like this one woman from Sales Loft wrote this just amazing one around the red pill, the blue pill, how like outreach is the red or the blue and all of this type of stuff. Like that stuff gets your attention. Like that's
Yeah.
really powerful. And like I can tell, I mean, we can all tell at this point what's AI written. Like I personally believe, because I want to automate every living thing except that rep judgment versus just continue to load up on sending those things themselves. It's an interesting ops question though, right? Because I remember at a prior company, people were like, you've built so many good things that all of our reps have just become button pushers, right? So there's the danger, which is they're like, cool. They look at it like, cool, I should just send that. I don't overthink it. So creativity is what's going to break through. And especially when I remember I was asking somebody, oh, I can't bag on these guys, but well, actually I can because the Sendoso guys I know. But I was like, hey, they were like, we've got this new AI that'll tell you what gift, and I was like, what do you give me? And he's like, whiskey set. And I asked, like, what do you give that guy? He's like, whiskey set, right? And you're like, ah, okay. And so like personalization is only as good as you gotta like AI has this ability to set how wild and creative these suggestions are. But the problem is you still need judgment to judge if that is wild and crazy and good or wild and crazy and bad. And so I think I haven't figured out a way to achieve wild and crazy, but not stupid. And so that's where I think I still value judgment, and I think that'll be important for a very long time.
Yeah, we at Pocus believe that you humans have to be in the loop for sales still. There is AI that can do first level reasoning or first level kind of relevancy of telling a rep, hey, this signal or collection of signals or insights is relevant and this might be what you want to engage about. But if without the human, it just becomes spammy and you can tell it's AI generated and it's irrelevant or it's just one signal that doesn't even matter anymore. So that being said, I'd be curious where you stand on AI as autopilot versus copilot. And maybe the answer is both in different places, or maybe the answer is one versus the other.
Mm. People spend a lot of time with those words. There's always a new buzzword, right? Like AI agents. I guess like everyone, this AI agent swarm, like it's always like there's a new buzzword. But like I remember I was at Dreamforce one time, and it was like 5 years ago, and I asked the guys like, "Hey, how much AI do you have?" And we were joking around. He's like, "You want more AI? I'll just give you more if statements." I feel like the marketing is always like ahead of this, right? We're just going to keep coining new terms. Yeah, I don't differentiate between copilot and autopilot. I'm with you. Like, I think the fundamental you need human judgment still, and ideally human creativity. I've had some really fun chats with our head of sales of SDR of like we still want our reps to be thinking themselves about what they send versus just automating the living hell out of that stuff. I've seen very few people be really successful with that one. And I did write a whole article on AI SDR, which Sandy, your lovely Sandy, contributed to. So I'll drop that one in here.
I'm excited. So, are we anti-SDR or maybe okay with AI SDR?
There's 7 questions. There's no perfect answer.
What's the two-sentence takeaway?
I'm skeptical.
You're skeptical for how long? Like, do you think skeptical near term or also skeptical long term?
I use the Tesla Waymo example, right? Like, yeah, Waymo basically realized that they couldn't if you automate something and you have to have the driver interject, the problem is the driver's gonna be on their phone, they're gonna be looking off, they're gonna be watching a movie, and so if they're like, "Crap, crap, crap, you're gonna crash, take the wheel," like, that's not gonna work, and so Waymo made this hard decision that they had to get rid of the driver completely. Tesla thinks they can go iterative by iterative, and so I think to my point on, like, reps just clicking buttons, I think at least within self-driving, I'm on the Waymo view. I think Tesla's wrong on that. Within the AI SDR world, I think you either have to go whole hog or not at all, or automate everything, or more what I'm doing, which is automating everything around it, but still letting the rep do the core pieces. And so I personally finding the people that go whole hog are just getting like disillusioned pretty quickly on that stuff.
Mm. Um, I super interesting. I'd be curious. I know you're skeptical of a lot of things in AI, as you should be, as most people.
There's plenty of areas we're piloting and testing it on for sure.
Yeah, so I'd be curious from your perspective, what are you most excited about in AI, and what kind of do you believe to hold true in AI?
Here I put in my AI market map. A VC asked me about it, and so we wrote one. And I love comments and stuff there. I'd say I think there's a lot of I've been diving deep in enablement with the team there. I think there's a lot of opportunities to improve enablement with AI, right? So reps don't. It's like you want to practice your speech more and more, right? But if I'm like Alexa, go practice. You're going to do it once in front of the mirror. You're like that was awkward, and you never do it again, right? But if I give you AI bots, you can practice with them. Like that's just one of many examples. So I think that I'm seeing like 5 or 6 examples where you can automate enablement, or you can't automate enablement, but you can do enablement 10x better with that. And the nice thing there is it doesn't you if you fuck it up, it doesn't show to the prospect or to the customer as well too.
Was this enablement in the sense of call coaching for reps?
There's a bunch of them in the market map. There's like 5 or 6 different use cases that are out there on that side. I mean, surfacing knowledge in the right way, understanding like who are your best reps, like eh, yeah. There's a lot of ways you can do that.
All right, I'm gonna ask you a hard question. What unconventional truth do you believe to be true about AI?
I don't know what the list of choices is, but I've been hacking a lot on the side, and I've learned that like you have to tell it many, many times. It's like teaching a 2-year-old, right? And so I was talking with somebody that I really value their trust, and she was like, "I don't think I can use this for outbound yet," just given all the dumb mistakes it's making sometimes, and just like really dumb mistakes. Like we were playing with it on people, and we are like, "Where does this person live?" And it would look at we would say, "Look only at their location in their headline." Would go and tell you where the companies were located. We're like, "No, don't do that." And it's like you're literally adding like, "Don't do scolding, scolding, scolding." And like, oh, it's like there's the judgment piece that's missing, right? Like if you've ever tried to make an image with AI, like just getting the words right on it are almost impossible, right? Or it's like I spent a lot of time with Midjourney trying to find the right image for things, and I'm like, I can just draw it for you better, right? And so it's like it is so powerful. I use it every day in so many amazing ways. But I think that there's some applications that are just hard to get right.
I Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting though because I do feel like the believers and early adopters will give some kind of they'll be more flexible, right? With AI hallucinating or not fully understanding because they can see the future of it. Whereas there's some people that are just like, I don't want to touch this until it's ready to go. And from our perspective, I see a little bit of both, right? Like there's some buyers that want to be ahead of the game and will adopt something even if it's not 100% perfect yet because the AI is not there. Others that'll say, we got to get on this now or we don't at all and I'll just wait until it's ready. So how do you fall on that? Cuz it sounds like you are a believer in AI but skeptical of some areas. So how do you think about then where to invest?
You mean my money or my time?
Your time. Well, you're
My money, I wouldn't invest in any of these things. There's only 2 companies in the toy other than Focus, which and a couple others that I've already invested in that I'm excited about in the Mad Kudu. Mad Kudu is another one which, you and I have talked a lot about, but I've got, like, 2 companies that I'm really excited about what they're bringing and changing, but, like, none of those are, like, AI companies. So investing my time, I mean, we're testing lots of things. We're always testing and you see what works and you see what doesn't, and you see where you have to, like, bang your head against a wall and, like, you don't spend more time there.
Yeah, totally, totally makes sense. So, maybe with 2 minutes left, what is your advice for other ops folks in the room that are evaluating AI solutions?
Be skeptical of the promises. Um, you're only I mean, everyone's kind of ends up at the same place, which is they're gonna help you send email better, right? But, like, in the end, I believe there's creativity there. I think there's so many other places you can use it, like, uh, classification, structure, filling in CRM. I've just been playing a lot with, like, the crawling to be able to, like, learn more about people, prep your reps, automate rep tasks, help reps with knowledge. There's so many beyond just AI helps you send more emails.
Hmm. And so for you, is there any kind of specific tools in that area that you're excited about?
I've been told in other areas. I can tell you about 1 or 2 that you want, but, in AI, yeah, I'm playing a lot with Clay on the side, and then my
Yeah.
team's got Clay in-house as well too. I've been watching it for 2 years now.
Yeah, totally. Mm. Clay is, I think, probably one of the leaders there. Very cool. Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation, Andy. You always have the hot takes or you kind of tell the truth, which I appreciate. And you're kind of always thinking about the future before most people I talk to. So thank you so much for your time today.
No, it was awesome. It was really fun.
Amazing. Thanks, Andy. It's so good to see you, and thank you to everyone else in the community. And if folks want to chat with you, where should they find you?
They can always follow me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thanks, Andy, and thank you to the community, and we'll talk to you soon.